Hi. So, a very good evening to all of you. Welcome to yet another call organized by Jungle Bells. So, Jungle Bells is an exclusive women's wildlife venture. We are into wildlife related excursions, conservation activities, and awareness. So, before we begin, I request all of you to turn your mobile phones off so that we do not hear the ringtones. Also, do not switch on your videos or the mics here so that we have a seamless experience of, listening to the speakers of today. If you have any questions for the guests of today, then you can, you know, keep them with you and maybe put them in the chat box and we will answer them at the end of the webinar. And if you want to receive any further communication or any updates from Jungle Bells, you can always type in your mobile numbers in the chat box. We will add you to our close WhatsApp group or share the Insta and handles with you so you can keep connected with our kind of activities. So the basic concept for this webinars that we've been doing is, bringing forth um, the work which a lot of wildlife people or the people who are in working actively into wildlife do. And a lot of times, we are not aware about so many people putting their efforts for this cause. So today, we have two very young professionals and they are young and they're very energetic. They're bringing a lot of bring I they are going to bring a lot of energy to this webinar. So I would just like to start by introducing Keya Vaswani. So she's a national award winning filmmaker, Forbes featured creative, and a TEDx speaker recognized for excellence in the fields of documentary, advertising, and photography. As the founder of Story of Being, a production house she started in 2013, Keya has spent over 12 years directing and producing a diverse range of non-fiction films and visual storytelling projects. Her intuitive eye for meaningful narratives and disciplined approach to craft have earned both critical and public acclaim. Beyond her cinematic journey, Keya is also an accomplished telepathic communicator and also known as animal and nature whisperer. So, through her practice, she fosters profound connections between humans and natural or spiritual world, communicating empathetically with animals, plants, and souls. She is known for creating spaces where compassion and healing thrive, using structured documentation to deepen the understanding of unseen bonds. Kaya, that is so wonderful. I think, connecting with animals, that is that is just amazing. Kia's multidimensional career reflects her mission to bridge creativity and consciousness. Whether behind the camera or practicing telepathic communication, her work is devoted to nurturing awareness, empathy, and harmony among people, nature, and invisible realms. Under the story of being banner, Kea continues to inspire and with stories and connections that celebrate both tangible and transcendent. So, welcome, Kea. I think this is an amazing thing. I'll introduce Sagar and we'll move on to the questions. So, Sagar is a wildlife filmmaker and a content creator. Growing up in Pune, he has always been surrounded by fascinating wildlife. Started bird watching when he was 10 years old, is very young, and has been hooked ever since. Fast forward 15 years, and he has completed his MA in wildlife documentary production from University of Salford, and he is filming India's fascinating natural world. With his work, he hopes to make others love and appreciate the natural wealth that India has. This is so wonderful. So, just to give you a background, both of your profiles kept on, somewhere or the other, we kept on getting, the क्या बोलते हैं उसको that Kea, we kept on coming on to the profiles of both of you, and Sagar, some podcast I'd heard, and that's how we decided to get in touch with you. We thought this was an absolute this thing that we document this work. We'll put it on the YouTube later and circulate it also. So it's very important that people know what you are doing. So we'll start off. It's always ladies first. So I think let's not give it a this thing here. So Kaya, let's start off. So what first sparked your interest in filmmaking and non-fiction storytelling?
Since my childhood, I've been listening to these beautiful stories, and thanks to my mom. मैं और मेरे भाई दोनों ही ऐसे ना, बचपन में हम रशियन चाइनीज बुक्स आती थी बच्चों की, तो वो पढ़ के बड़े हुए. सो स्टोरी टेलिंग कहीं ना कहीं इट हैज ऑलवेज बिन इन माय माइंड. But when I'm talking about sparking the interest, so my background is I studied craft product designing from my college called IICD, Indian Institute of Crafts and Design. And while I was making the product, I somewhere I realized that मैं products तो बना रही हूँ, मैं थोड़ा बोर हो गई. I just want to see what else can I do. Like, is there anything beyond this? And that is when I got this opportunity to make a film on बनारसी साड़ी. अब जब ये है कि आपने 4 साल जब सिर्फ प्रोडक्ट्स ही बनाए हैं, और फाइनली जब आप जाके देख रहे हो कि लोग कौन सी कैसे जो प्रोडक्ट्स हैं वो कैसे बना रहे हैं, एंड थैंकफुली जो ग्रेजुएशन प्रोजेक्ट जो मिला था, दैट वाज अबाउट मेकिंग फिल्म्स थ्रू टेक्सटाइल हिस्टोरियन राहुल जैन. तो जब कैमरा पहली बार पकड़ा और जब लोगों को शूट करना चालू किया, दैट वाज द मोमेंट आई रियलाइज दैट हे यू नो व्हाट, दिस इज समथिंग दैट आई एम जेन्युइनली एंजॉयिंग, because I can see the story telling skills, and because my dad is a photographer by passion, so I could also I have all those sense, everything coming into the picture. And main thing was कि जब मैंने ये realize किया कि I have this power of sharing the stories of what goes behind the craft. If I'm buying a sari in an exhibition, किसी को नहीं पता है कि वो कौन बनाता है, कैसे बनती है, कहाँ बनती है. And when I shot my first film called Threads of Banaras, जहाँ पर अलग-अलग लोगों से when I was meeting, and I realized that when I'm telling these stories behind the camera, I'm not just talking about what Banarsi sari is, but I'm talking about the culture, the people, how they live, what they are doing, and can I bring something जो लोगों को पता नहीं है. And the sheer interest of sharing the stories of what I am experiencing physically in the world, can I share exactly the same with the rest of the world? So that is how like it all sparked the interest, and I decided that this is something that I want to continue.
So wonderful. So you have a strong intuition later on that you wanted to get into something like this, storytelling, etc. And that's
Right.
what you hear. That is so amazing. So Sagar, now moving on to you, what sparked your interest in wildlife growing up in Pune? Though we know that Pune and Mumbai are the hubs, of wildlife. So what made you get into this? A little bit of your background.
So first of all, thank you so much for having me here. It's such a great opportunity to talk about something like wildlife conservation, wildlife film. And going back, let's say, as you mentioned, I've been bird watching since I was 10 years old. So obviously, the first things when you're 10 years old that grab your attention are the shiny things. So I remember watching purple sunbirds outside of my balcony or going on to the area hills, all of those places. And these noisy, small, shining birds were something that I could not get enough of. They were always around and they always fascinated me. So I think that kind of like basic quality of wildlife, which is they're so cool. That is what you think about them. They're like, oh my God, how are you like this? That quality struck me so much. It kind of pierced through me. And then after that, it's been like birds are my first love when it comes to wildlife. So it's been, oh, I need to see the Asian paradise flycatcher. Look at his tail. Look at this. Look at that. I've always been mesmerized by the natural beauty that we have right outside our houses. So like that is how it started. And then I've just been roaming around the jungles of India, looking at every leaf, insect, bird, mammal that I can find and capture.
This is so amazing. So I think getting hooked on at the right age, and stepping into this kind of wildlife, or and developing an interest. So I'm sure a lot of young minds watching this and wanting to explore this, because that is also the purpose of what we do. We create awareness in schools regarding wildlife. We want more and more children to get hang of it, so they develop an interest, not as taking it ahead as much as you are doing, but at least they visit a lot of places in and around, and we are blessed in Pune to have a lot of biodiversity spots where you can go and check out the wildlife. That's great, amazing. So moving on to Keya, so what inspired you to launch Story of Being, and how has the journey evolved over the years? So you can tell us a little bit about the Story of Being concept of yours.
Sure. So पहले क्या था? Story of Being was called Story Loom Films. That is how I started making films, and initially I was working with my former partner. And क्या हुआ कि maybe I think 2-3 years back, I realized that somehow I am not feeling okay with this name, Story Loom Films, anymore. And I was struggling with it. And I could see कि वो struggle सिर्फ मेरा mental नहीं था. I was struggling making films. I was struggling thinking of new stories. And like something is just not okay. And when I learned telepathic communication, and while I was having a beautiful conversation with my cat, that was the moment I realized that, see, we grow as a human, we keep evolving as human beings. And जब मैंने फिल्में बनाना चालू की थी, which was 2012, and in I think 2022 के आसपास शायद मैंने इसका नाम चेंज किया होगा, और 23, आई रियलाइज कि यार मैं बहुत बदल चुकी हूँ, मेरी टीम बदल गई है, मेरे कहानी बताने का तरीका बदल गया है. And especially now, where you have this new world, where you imagine a world where you are able to speak to plants and animals, सिर्फ humans नहीं है. So my world has become like much more expanded and much more inclusive. And तब मुझे लगा कि यार स्टोरी लूम फिल्म्स इज नॉट जस्टिफाइंग विथ व्हाट आई डू. इवन
Right.
टेलीपैथिक कम्युनिकेशन इज एन एक्सपेंशन ऑफ हु आई एम. So then story loom से story of being नाम आया. And again, like being very conscious कि मुझे ये story of being का नाम क्यों चाहिए था, because see, in the end, हर कोई हम अपनी existence की कहानी बता रहे हैं. हम ये पॉडकास्ट कर रहे हैं जहां पर हम तीनों अपनी एग्जिस्टेंस की बता रहे हैं, एनिमल्स हो गए, प्लांट्स हो गए, इवन इन दीज टेलीपैथिक सेशंस.
Right.
So when it is about story of existence, which includes my team as well, अगर मेरे cinematographer मेरे साथ है तो वो भी अपनी कहानी बता रहे हैं, hey, you know what, look at my shots.
Right.
So I wanted something inclusive, I wanted something spiritual, and I wanted to include every being on this planet, Earth, galaxy, universe. So
Okay.
that's how the name came. And talking about the evolution of story of being, so I started making films from different crafts to fashion to architecture. And now what I'm noticing is कि after like being telepathic communicator, and currently I'm right now in Raipur, Chhattisgarh. I'm born in Raipur, Chhattisgarh. तो
Okay.
छत्तीसगढ़ के आसपास इतने खूबसूरत जंगल हैं, इतनी सारी चीजें हैं, and I'm meeting these wildlife rescuers, wildlife enthusiasts, people who are doing PhD on wildlife. So naturally, I can see that I'm moving towards that direction, and now coming across Sagar as well.
Yes, I know. That's so wonderful to hear. So, um, this is very innovative. I've not heard someone do this into wildlife, getting all your energies into one. So that is also amazing. So we look forward to, following what you're doing in the story of being per se. So amazing
I'm
that is.
looking forward, like, too. Like, let's see what happens.
That's nice. Yeah, Sagar. So, is there any early wildlife experience from your childhood that has stayed with you and shaped your journey? So, you've told us how you got into it, but anything
Yeah.
particular that you would want to highlight, tell our audience about it?
So, my journey with bird watching, especially, that is my entrance into wildlife and everything wildlife. So, when I started, obviously it was naked eyes, then binoculars, and then I had this cyber shot, which me and my friends called Sabanachi Vadi. For Keya, that means a bar of soap. So,
Yeah.
the cyber shot being the size of a bar of soap, I used to carry that around and be like, oh, I'm a wildlife photographer now, let's go. So I remember going. I used to be whenever there's Diwali vacations, summer vacations. I used to go take my cycle and go on the hills and search for anything. I could have
Right.
been abducted by anyone, but I'm here, so it's great.
Right.
But at that point, winters used to be the best season because that time I used to like go through the Indian subcontinent birds wala book. I used to look at what migrants might be here, go to different habitats. And I remember specifically that one winter back, like somewhere around 2013, 14, I had this camera and there was, so there's a very, yeah, there's a very popular hill here called Vetar Tekdi or ARI Tekdi. So there's a huge quarry in the center, and there's water inside, and there's grasslands around it, like savannas around it. So I was on the edge with a binocular around my neck and a camera, that small camera, and a common kestrel decided to
Right.
hover right in front of me with the
Right.
sunset in the backdrop. And
Yeah.
that was the first, like a good photo that I remember that I clicked. And that was
Okay.
of a common kestrel. I was over the moon. All of the dadas that I used to go on trips with, all of the, oh, I'm emailing them like, oh my God, look at what I got. And it was hovering over the quarry. So that is one, like, that is what got me hooked onto photography
All
because
right.
I was already hooked to wildlife. So I'm like, this is amazing.
Correct, correct. Correct. That's amazing. So always there is one instance, like for me, there was, starting off and, seeing Maya in Tadoba walking. So that has etched in my memory, the tigress. So that changed my perspective about, how I'm seeing the forest. It was not about seeing the tiger, but it was also how she was walking, she was behaving, or how she was taking herself along. So that has got it. So it's always one memory that it's there with you for overall. So I'm happy to hear about the kestrel. Yeah, so Kea, for you is, at what point did you become aware of your ability to connect deeply with animals and nature, and how did the exploration begin?
Um, I think, see, as a child, I've always been like that. And trust me when I say that whenever we are born as child, like humans, we are intuitively, telepathically connected with nature. You might have come across kids who was like, "Mummy Billy ne ye kaha, पेड़ ने ये कहा," right? So
Yeah.
I was also like that, and I would say this was something which is so I always been very sensitive when it comes to life beyond human being since my childhood. And I remember having conversation with पेड़ and पौधे and चांद and तारे. बट क्या होता है कि जैसे जैसे हम बड़े होते जाते हैं वैसे वैसे because of the distraction and the conditioning that we get as human beings,
Correct.
the telepathic skills that we all have actually takes a backseat, and that's what exactly happened as I grew older. आप
Yeah.
काम पढ़ाई सारी चीजें कर रहे हो, you completely forgot about that. But I always used to work with animals, rescue. Again, like
Mm.
basic intuition की awareness थी. But the relearning happened when actually it happened twice. I lost my so once I lost my cat into the wood. उसका नाम बुल्ला है. He's a beautiful
Right.
tuxedo cat.
Right.
And one, because I was living in Bangalore for 2 years, I shifted back to Jaipur. So I was facing a lot of problem. And being an animal lover, I always used to read about animals. So I came across this documentary called The Animal Communicator by Anna Brittenbach. Right. So उनका मैंने छोटा सा क्लिप देखा. So I was aware कि telepathic या animal whispering कुछ तो ऐसा होता है. Let me just see अगर इंडिया में ऐसा है कि नहीं है. So
Right.
when I connected with one of the communicator, and in both the places where I lost my cat and where, like when I was in Jaipur, अब वो पुणे में बैठे बैठे this telepathic communicator is telling me कि आपके घर में blue sofa है, ये है, वो है, और जहाँ बिल्ली आपकी गुम गई है वहां पे 2 किचन, एक ह्यूमन के लिए खाना बनता है, किन के लिए बनता है, and there's a sauce. And मैं सोच रही हूँ, the only thing that I did was just send the photograph of my cat and his name. That's it. And वहां पर पुणे में बैठे बैठे she and like how is it even possible?
Right.
But when I was able to find my cat after 1 week, जो और कोई ढूंढ ही नहीं पा रहा था, that was a moment. तब मुझे लगा कि यार ये तो सीखना पड़ेगा. Like I'm born to do this. And मुझे याद है बचपन में, सो कान्हा किसली नेशनल पार्क के बारे में आपको पता होगा. मैं जब से 3 साल की थी, थैंक्स टू माय पेरेंट्स, वो हमको तब से लेके जा रहे हैं. तो लाइक ऐसा होता है कि हम उस जंगल के साथ बड़े
That's
हुए हैं.
बड़े हुए. Yeah, that's right. Correct.
Exactly. So that's how like I am connected with nature. So somewhere आपको पता है कि वो चीज है आपके अंदर. और जब ये सारी चीजें हुई, उसके बाद भी आई थिंक 4 साल पहले मैंने ये टेलीपैथिक कम्युनिकेशन सीखा था. एंड इट इज नाउ व्हेन आई एम टेकिंग इट प्रोफेशनली. एंड
Yeah.
टॉकिंग अबाउट द एक्सपीरियंस दैट हैज बीन गोइंग ऑन, अभी भी ऐसा लगता है कि अच्छा यार ये सच में हो रहा है क्या, सच में ये एनिमल्स बता रहे. बिकॉज एवरी टाइम व्हेन यू हैविंग दिस कॉन्वर्सेशन यू आर लाइक सो सरप्राइज दैट how intelligent our like all these species are. And it's sad to see that because हम दूर होते जा रहे हैं. तो how do I say this कि जो एम्पैथी है जो हमारे अंदर जो होनी चाहिए, अब बचपन से जो बच्चों के अंदर होती है, एज किड्स वी आर ऑलवेज वेरी काइंड एंड
Yeah.
कंपैशनेट.
Yes.
वो बड़े होके चली जाती है. So
Yeah.
but it's been just like wonderful experience every time when I'm having these communications.
Wow, that is really this thing. So, couple of points that you mentioned is, the empathy that is getting lost between, the younger age, the children, and when we grow up, we suddenly become this thing. And that thing of growing up with the forest, what you mentioned, in the jungle, in with nature, it is so
Right.
important for children nowadays because, they are more growing up in concrete. So, if they're not exposed to these kind of nature and wildlife at a good age and uh, from their parents or from the school. So there are two mediums that are very important. So if they are not introduced at the right time, um, if the parents get them introduced well, as well and well, good, because they will take them for trips. But in school also, if they imbibe certain kind of outdoors and going on nature trails and things like that, I think that interest levels will develop same as way that you both have come along the way. So I think point
Absolutely. And
was
I think what I also feel is कि see in the end जब भी मैं लोगों से पूछती हूँ अगर भगवान उतर के आ जाए और आपको कैसी जगह रहनी, everybody says I want to live in the mountains and nature.
yes, yes.
Nobody says कि मुझे वो concrete world में रहना है.
Correct,
So
correct, correct. So that
just
there lies
that.
the answer. Yes. Yeah. So Sagar, how has your academic training influenced your visual style and approach to storytelling? So what would you like to why this question is important? Because whenever people, young kids or who are going to watch it ahead, they will know exactly or they will get a little bit of guidance of what you've done and how it has helped you, or rather, if they want to pursue it.
Right. So, the before I did my master's in 2022, I was a wildlife photographer for almost half a decade. Half
Yeah.
a decade. So at that point, compositions and all of these things were quite familiar.
Yeah.
But then when you enter, like, I thought it was one-to-one correlation. Like, oh, I know photography, film आसान होगा. ऐसा नहीं होता है. So the amount of thought that goes behind a film, that goes behind developing a story, and all of those things is so different to what a photo is, because photo is just one moment in time. So when I started doing film, let's say when I started learning about film, a
Right.
lot of my perspectives changed. For example, the Sagar that was photographing in 22 does not exist now. Just like
Yeah.
Keya said, we're always evolving, we're always going ahead. So one thing that changed through this masters, so our masters was half of wildlife research and half
Okay.
of filmmaking. So it was
Okay.
not completely just like camera editing, this, that. So
Right.
when we started doing that, before that I was all like, okay, so if a wildlife doc is about wildlife. So अगर हाथी दिखाना है तो हाथी का ही सीक्वेंस है, वो ये पेड़ से तोड़ के खा
Right.
रहा है, ये blah 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 is drinking water, whatever, and that is the film. So
Yeah.
it is all about the animal and the habitat and nature, and that's it. But once when I did the masters, one thing that really caught my attention is how important people are in these stories.
Correct.
So there is only so much wildlife footage that you can watch, wow sequences that you can watch. But if you're not
Right.
able to put yourself in their shoes, if you're not able to relate,
Right.
it's not going to make a difference.
Correct.
It will go by like a reel. If you watch like a
Right.
5 minute film, which is
Yeah.
filled with fantastic tiger shots, for that, for those 5 minutes, you're like, wow. But if
Yeah.
you see what kind of difficulties the villagers on the outskirts of these wildlife tiger reserves go, like they're losing their cattle, they might be scared for their lives when they go out in the night because there might be a leopard or a tiger out there. So when you feel these basic human emotions of fear, of having a livelihood, having a family, wanting to maintain that, all of those in the context of nature and wildlife, that is the sweet spot. So that is something that, like, I opened my eyes to when I was making these films, because like, from going from not making a film to making a film, my supervisors were pretty harsh. They were like, no, it's not good. Write another script, write another idea. So because of them being so harsh on me and developing that sense, I feel, and also having research as a background. Like, I've done my BSc, and even in that master's, we've done a lot of research through papers and all that. So having the understanding of the wildlife you're filming and having the sense of what the story is, because nothing is more important in a film than the story. So once you have both of those things, you
Yeah.
really are gearing up to make a good product. So that is basically what the masters taught me.
All right, all right. That's great. So what I get from Sagar is just filming animals. Yes, it is important, but right now, a lot of people are talking about this term called coexistence, and how human and animals should be staying with each other. So it's not about animals; it's more about humans accommodating them as and how in their habitat, and that's how, so it's so very important. So how you brought in the human aspect to your filmmaking and stories, and that's how it would be important, and it would give a kind of a I would say a message to people in every film also, and the relatability to it will be much more than just watching an animal kind of movie types this thing. That's great. I mean, so, Kia, for your next question, your question I'm reading out, both of you, they're so difficult. I mean, it's like, all that telepathy, the words are also, so I should not mince the words. So I'm like, careful about all of them. So, how would you describe your process of intuitive or telepathic communication in a simple and professional way, especially for those who are new to the concept? So, this question is, see, a lot of people know that I speak. So I have two dogs at home, and I have also gone through a telepathy, this thing with them. But I know it's a great science, and I believe in that. But apart from that, what you experience at your end, and how would you describe this science to everyone else?
Let's understand the basic, okay? See, telepathy is something that everybody experience every day in our life. A good example would be कि हमने किसी के बारे में सोचा, उसका मैसेज या फोन आ गया, या कई बार सड़क चलते हमको लोग मिल जाते हैं और हम कहते हैं अरे ये तो कोइंसिडेंट है. But what actually is happening is that we are having this telepathic communication. Now, telepathy comes from two words, Greek word tele and pathos. Tele means long distance, so telephoto lens, telescope, television. And pathy means feelings or emotions. So when we are combining telepathy, it simply means कि दूर बैठे बैठे, without the need of verbal communication, we are having a communication through our sense of emotions and feelings, basically mental communication. अब जब हम एनिमल से बात करते हैं, जिसको हम इंटरस्पीशी कम्युनिकेशन भी कहते हैं, एनिमल विस्परिंग भी कहते हैं, अब वो चाहे प्लांट हो, ह्यूमंस हो, एनिमल्स हो, दे कम्युनिकेट विथ अस इन थ्री डिफरेंट वेज. मैं बहुत मोटा मोटा बता रही हूँ सो दैट पीपल अंडरस्टैंड लाइक व्हाट इज द प्रोसेस. जैसे सबसे पहले हो जाता है विजुअल. सो व्हेन आई एम टॉकिंग टू, फॉर एग्जांपल, इफ आई स्पीक टू माय कैट बुल्ला, एंड अगर मैंने बुल्ला से पूछा यार तू इस वक्त कहाँ पर है, सो ही माइट शो सर्टेन इमेजेस इन माय माइंड, लाइक हमारी इमेजिनेशन कैसे होती है. एंड आई एम श्योर सागर मस्ट हैव एक्सपीरियंस दीज थिंग्स व्हाइल फोटोग्राफिंग, की कुछ चीजें ना आपको होने से पहले या तो आपको इमेज आ रही है या
Yeah.
मन में आवाज आ जाती है, लाइक इंट्यूटिवली.
Correct.
So this is one way, like you have these mental projections. अच्छा, एक ऐसा भी हुआ था कि मुझे याद है कान्हा किसली में मैं नाम भूल गई, आई थिंक किससे बात की थी मैंने, एंड दैट टाइग्रेस टोल्ड मी कि हाँ हाँ मैं सुबह दिखूंगी, मैं 4 बच्चों के साथ दिखूंगी, ये वो, एंड दैट्स व्हाट एग्जैक्टली हैपेंड. लाइक शी शोड मी दैट इमेज ऑफ लाइक हर वॉकिंग विद 4 kids. सेकेंड इज ऑडिटरी, जहां पर जानवरों की कोई अपनी आवाज नहीं होती, हम अपने आप से मन में कैसे बात करते हैं, उन्हीं अपनी ही आवाज में हमको सुनाई देता है. सो हैविंग अ फुल फ्लेजेड वर्बल कम्युनिकेशन, कि मान लो बजरंग टाइगर ने बोला, जैसे मेरे फ्रेंड को बोला था कि हाँ मैं तुमको सुबह मिलूंगा, यहाँ पे मिलूंगा, गाड़ी थोड़ा पीछे कर लो, मुझे आगे निकलना है, एग्जैक्टली वर्ड टू वर्ड दीज थिंग्स हैपेंड. एंड
Yeah.
थर्ड इज काइनेस्थेटिक, वेयर यू आर एबल टू फील व्हाट दे आर फीलिंग, जिसको हम वाइब्रेशंस या एनर्जीज भी कहते हैं. जैसे
Right.
सिंपल है कि कई बार हम लोगों से मिलते हैं और कहते हैं यार इनसे मिलके हमें अच्छा नहीं लगा, इससे मिलके हमें अच्छा लग रहा है. सो
Right.
दैट्स हाउ वी आर कम्युनिकेटिंग. एंड इसका एक सिंपल जो तरीका है कम्युनिकेट करने का इज कि जैसे ही आपने किसी एनिमल से सवाल पूछा, चाहो लाइक आप टाइगर से या किसी बर्ड से पूछ रहे हैं सागर, या आप अपने डॉग से बात कर रहे हो, क्वेश्चन पूछते ही जस्ट गो विद द फर्स्ट फीलिंग, फर्स्ट गट फीलिंग, फर्स्ट थॉट दैट कम्स इन योर माइंड, first projection that you see. That's it is that simple. And that's how, like, the more you practice, you learn to differentiate between your own thoughts and their communication.
Right.
And
Right.
especially I think people who are working, either if they have animals in their life or they're working in wildlife and all, मतलब वो naturally they are doing this telepathic communication. The only
Right.
difference is कि बस अभी वो awareness में आ गया है. But this is what the process like overall looks like.
That's wonderful. So I wanted to ask you, you do this for the animals, but you said you do this for the plants and this thing also. So is it that you can communicate by to the trees and plants? Is it what it is?
Absolutely. It's the
I've never heard
same
about
way of communication.
Okay.
हाँ, so जैसे हम एनिमल से करें इन योर माइंड जस्ट ह्यूमंस के लिए थोड़ा आसान हो जाता है
Right.
इमेजिन देम एज बीइंग अ ह्यूमन बीइंग और एज एन इंडिविजुअल तो
Right.
जब आप उनसे बात कर रहे हो मैं तो देखो मैं आई कम्युनिकेट समटाइम्स लाउडली ओके व्हेन आई एम अलोन और मुझे लगता है कोई मुझे देखेगा तो मुझे पागल समझेगा
Right.
ऑनेस्टली but
Yes.
that's how and just see whatever you are getting like even while hugging a tree you get so many things so वही है कि telepathic communication is not only limited to plants and animals even when we see that people do soul communication I remember I've had communication with certain very very specific human beings with needs like autistic kids अगर हो गए कोई autistic है or someone have dementia so only humans are too complicated तो वैसे भी उनसे बात नहीं हो सकती but
Correct.
only when it is absolutely needed that
Needed.
too with permission आप कर सकते हो otherwise आप human से नहीं मतलब इस तरीके से इतना easily नहीं कर सकते
कर सकते नॉर्मल से भी नहीं कर सकते दिस इज तो
exactly
स्पीकिंग
लोग मुझसे ये पूछते हैं ह्यूमन से बात कर सकते हैं मैंने नहीं कोशिश भी मत करना दे आर वेरी कॉम्प्लिकेटेड लाइक वी
करेक्ट
आर वेरी
yes
कॉम्प्लिकेटेड
yes that's great so Sagar now what was your first wildlife film project and how did this opportunity come about to you
As I said, the first time I made a film was when I did my degree. Before that, I did make a few small projects for the mass for to submit my application in the master itself. But my first wildlife film, I would call, was my first semester film. So it was about we were supposed to showcase a person and their connection to wildlife. So I got in touch with a local in Manchester. And he was really kind enough to not only go through a few rounds of interviews from my end for the script, but also do a few shoots with me. And he basically, because we were at the end of 22, COVID was not far away. So at that point in COVID, everyone has felt the loneliness while still being enclosed with their own family. So he had
right
the same thing. And when I think their restrictions there were different. So he was able to go out into the country, like into the woodlands and all of those things. So at that point, he also had his partner's camera, and he was able to take that camera outdoors and photograph squirrels or whatever birds that he could see. And I was able to capture that story through him. And that was the first wildlife project I was able to. He told me a few spots like, oh, I'll talk about the mallard ducks that I saw, which I like, so you can film them here. And he was so helpful, such a sweetheart. And in that documentary, the one thing that I learned was obviously A-roll. So there's two roles in
right
film. So A role and B role. A role, if you're taking an interview, the person talking to you to the camera is the A role. And let's say he's talking, oh, I saw the mallard duck in this park. And then you
yeah
put a video on top of the mallard
right
duck. So that is the B roll.
yeah
So the importance of B roll, the importance of tone, the importance of what music to use, when to use it, when not to use it, VFX, all of the SFX, all of
yeah
those things. Like that was the first documentary that I ever made. And in those 4.5 minutes, I was like breaking down. I'm like, oh my God, it's just these many minutes, and I have to think so much. Like, oh my God, where do I put this music? Is this correct? The lighting is correct or
right
not? Everything. So it was a challenging shoot, having thrown myself off into the deep end, but it was
yeah.
so much fun. It was a really good learning experience.
Wow. So I just wanted to extend this question further. How many projects have you done till now after that?
So I would say the wildlife film projects that I've done are three semester films. And
O-
after that, I tried my luck in Bristol, which is like the Bollywood of wildlife film. So I did
Okay.
try my luck, but recession has absolutely just like shut the industry down for a bit. So I
Okay.
did network a lot. I did talk to a lot of great people doing great work in amazing studios. And now
Okay.
that I'm back, the one thing that I'm focusing on really is making content to kind of start a movement behind watching wildlife and being aware about it. So I
Okay.
am currently writing scripts for short films that I might be shooting in the next year. But apart
Okay.
from that, it's all YouTube vlogs, which one of my vlogs is coming out in the next month, which is that's what I'm focusing on, becoming a wildlife presenter.
Okay. Okay. That's wonderful. Yes, yeah. So back to you again. So, could you share a meaningful experience from your filmmaking or intuitive communication work that has shaped your approach?
Oh, I have so many experience.
Mhm.
Let me start one with filmmaking. So, I think maybe few years back, शायद 5-6 साल पुरानी बात है. So I went to this village, Dharmavaram, to make a film, documentary film on Tolu Bomulata, which
Okay.
is shadow puppetry in Telugu language, like literal meaning उसका वही है. एंड जिनके साथ हम बात कर रहे थे चिदम्बरा अंकल ही इज लाइक अ ब्यूटिफुल ह्यूमन बीइंग दैट यू विल कम अक्रॉस. तो जब उनसे बातचीत हो रही थी, चीजें अपनी बातें बता रहे थे, तो अब उन्होंने अपना कोई एक्सपीरियंस बताया कि जब उनके दादाजी ये शैडो पपेट्री करते थे. और ओरिजिनली क्या होता था कि इस शैडो पपेट्री में देवर ट्रैवलर्स, तो जगह जगह गांव गांव ट्रैवल करते थे, स्टेज लगाते थे, फिर लोगों को एपिक सुनाते थे, महाभारत रामायण. और इन रिटर्न लोग उनका ध्यान रखते थे कि अब गांव में रह जाओ, ये सब कर लो. अब उनके दादाजी जब ट्रैवल कर रहे थे तो किसी गांव में ऐसा हुआ था जहां पर रेनफॉल बिल्कुल भी नहीं हुई थी. एंड किसी ने बोला कि हमने सुना है कि आपके दादाजी में डिवाइन पावर है और जब वो परफॉर्म करते हैं तो वो जो भी है कि बारिश ला सकते हैं. तो अगर आपने वो कर दिया तो अगले 1 या 2 साल हम आपके खाने पीने रहने का ध्यान रखेंगे. एंड
Okay.
उनके दादाजी ने जो भी चीजें की, आई थिंक कुछ पूजा अर्चना की एंड पूरा स्टेज लगाया. जैसे ही उनकी परफॉर्मेंस खत्म हुई, बारिश हो गई.
Oh,
दिस वाज द
wow.
स्टोरी. एंड व्हेन आई वाज गोइंग देयर फॉर अ शूट लाइक विद माय फॉर्मर पार्टनर, तो हमने सारी चीजें शूट कर ली. हम पूरा उनका स्टेज चल रहा है, एपिक चल रहा है, और हमको दिख रहा है धीरे धीरे काले बादल आ रहे हैं. और हम तो फिल्म मेकर्स हैं, हम डरे हुए कि हमारा शूट खराब हो जाएगा, सारी चीजें इक्विपमेंट्स का क्या होगा. ये वो तब तो ये बातें दिमाग में आई ही नहीं थी. और यही हुआ कि काले बादल आ रहे सब है, बट चिदम्बरम अंकल इसकी चिंता मत करो, कुछ नहीं होगा, कुछ नहीं होगा, ये वो. और हम सोच रहे हैं जो भी है. अंत में जैसे ही हमने, आई थिंक हमारा कुछ पूरे दिन का शूट था, जैसे ही हमने रात में रैप अप किया, सामान अंदर रखा एंड इट स्टार्टेड पोरिंग. सो एक्सपीरियंसिंग द सेम स्टोरी दैट ही सेड,
Yeah.
एंड फिर उनके ये बोलने से करना तब. सो इट ब्रोक अ लॉट ऑफ बैरियर दैट आई वाज कैरिंग. वन इज लाइक हैविंग द स्पिरिचुअल एक्सपीरियंस कि हाँ भाई, भगवान या कुछ तो बड़ी चीज है.
Right.
और दूसरा ये चीज कि हम जो ना शहर वाले जो एक नोशन लेके चलते हैं कि शहर मतलब गांव वाले हाय बेचारे, उनको पता नहीं होगा, उनको नॉलेज नहीं होगी, दे आर नॉट स्पिरिचुअल पीपल. सो मीटिंग चिदम्बरा अंकल broke all that perception that I was carrying about people from the
Right.
villages, and how enlightened, spiritually awakened, and educated in their own world they are. So that completely shifted how I looking started making documentaries, and while I was meeting people.
Right.
Second, when it comes to intuitive places, quickly I'll tell you, like so animals में क्या होता है, एक mirroring case हम बोलते हैं.
Mhm.
Mirroring में what our animal does is, if they want to tell you something, either they mirror you or they mirror a situation.
Okay.
सो उल्ला इज लाइक दैट, जो बाहर घूम कर आता है, अंदर सोता रहता है. सडनली वो कहीं से घूम कर आया और वो लंगड़ा लंगड़ा के चल रहा है. मुझे लगा लग गई होगी, घूमता रहता है बाहर. 2 दिन हो गए, 3 दिन हो गए. फिर मैंने उससे पूछा कि सीन क्या है. लाइक कुछ नहीं है. देन आई आस्क्ड लाइक, आर यू मिररिंग एनीवन इन द हाउस? तो ही सेड कि यस, आई एम मिररिंग योर मॉम. आई एम लाइक, व्हाई एग्जैक्टली आर यू डूइंग दैट? सो मम्मा को अर्थराइटिस का प्रॉब्लम था, और जिसकी वजह से मम्मा की जो चाल है वो हल्का सा लिंपिंग हो रही थी,
Right.
जिसको डक वॉक भी कहते हैं. एंड बुल्ला वाज लिटरली मिररिंग दैट. एंड ही सेड कि मम्मा, इट्स बीन 2 years और 1 year, शी इज बीन जस्ट पोस्टपोनिंग हर सर्जरी कि चलो ये कर लेते हैं, वो कर लेते हैं, ऐसा कर लेते हैं, इट्स हाई टाइम, इट्स अलार्मिंग, आस्क हर टू डू हर सर्जरी फाइनली. एंड देन
Right.
विद इन 2-3 months मम्मा ने लाइक शी डिसाइडेड कि चलो सर्जरी कर लेते हैं. सो अगेन मैंने लाइक कम अक्रॉस लाइक सच एक्सपीरियंसेस, तब
Right.
मुझे लगता है कि माय गॉड, लाइक कितनी ऐसी चीजें हैं जो खाता पता ही नहीं है अपने
Yes,
आसपास.
yes. So wonderful. So just to share from, I have a retriever at home and she was being rescued apparently. And we got her from one of the one places where she was just kept on a terrace without being, anything. So she was a little bit
Right.
weaker. So she did not, the breeder could not, give it off to someone apparently. And then we got her, very lovable, this thing, but she goes behind my maid like she's obsessed with her. So from morning to night, so she's been following her everywhere. Whenever she, after 5 minutes, she's jumping on her. And also, then I contacted the animal communicator in Pune to say, ask he why she's so obsessed. I mean, that maid was getting a little bit, weary. I mean, everywhere she doesn't let me do my work and things like that. So the maid has a little bit of traumatic background of her husband, hitting her and then things like that. So apparently, my retriever said that she is deprived of love by her parents and her husband, and she's not got it. So I want to give the most that I can give her. So this brought tears to all of our eyes at home. I was like, my God, and maid was also like, she suddenly developed a different feeling towards her. I said, she's giving you love. So that was a plain and thought for my retriever. But how she understood
Right.
that, she doesn't have this. So animals have that, in them. They are so selfless giving. So she just thought
Oh,
wants to give. That's how it was.
very things exist, love and compassion.
Love and compassion, absolutely. Yeah, Sagar. So for you, could you share a challenging field moment and have you navigated through it? So we want to know what, the challenges are. So indirectly you're sharing that everything doesn't look hunky-dory. I'm into filmmaking and it's all nice. So what are the challenges? And maybe you can highlight one of your most challenging moments.
So, to everyone listening, whether it's now or later, in wildlife film or photography, apart from being prepared and showing up, everything else is a challenge. There is nothing promised, and this was proven again. Like I've been through this so many times, but this August, like the vlog that I mentioned that's coming out next month, this August, I was shooting that in Ratnagiri. So we were there in Ratnagiri shooting, trying to shoot the
Okay.
Oriental dwarf kingfisher and the blue-eared kingfisher.
Okay.
Now, as you have just signed, the Oriental rock kingfisher is quite common. It is a beautiful bird, but it's found everywhere in
Right.
the western coast. So we leave at 15th of August, and if you Google 15th of August Ratnagiri weather, it was raining cats and dogs. So
Yeah.
we crossed Tamini Ghat, and our friend from Ratnagiri called and told us to go back because there's no way you're seeing anything. We go back next weekend on the 22nd. We leave again. We reached Ratnagiri. We reached the spot where this nest of this Oriental rock kingfisher is. So it's not a hide, it's not commercialized at all. So it's a random spot in the middle of Ratnagiri. We go there, we wait there for 2 hours, and we see nothing. We see absolutely nothing because the rain has washed away that nest. And how we find out, because we were like, dikh jayega. We heard a few calls and like, dikh jayega. And then when I set up my camera after like the rain had passed, the sun had come out. I'm like, this is the best time to set up the camera. I set up the camera and I see ants walking out of the nest. I'm like, that is a clear sign that there's nothing inside that is
Nothing
going to show
inside.
up.
Correct.
And then we go on this wild goose chase because I want some footage. I want to showcase, like, this is the whole point of the vlog. I want to have at least five
Correct.
minutes. So, so we go ahead and we search, and that is the challenge.
Okay.
Being able to problem solve and be on your toes and not get defeated
Correct.
because we were supposed to be here a week ago. We're now
Right.
here 1 week late. It's already raining. There's 5 minutes of sun. Now I found out the bird isn't there. अब मुझे जाना है किधर और जाना है through this evergreen forest of full of streams.
Yeah.
Every possible spot
I
around me is a good habitat for that bird. And then we went on this wild goose chase to find it. And we finally did find it, how you will find out in the vlog. But that is the whole point.
okay.
Not giving up and
Correct.
being able to problem solve on your toes. That is what it is. So,
Correct.
so it's
Sure. I
just
mean, like
amazing.
all other, professions, it is as challenging. I mean, people feel that, I mean, it's like, but so much time you have to be outdoors, get the chance to film something. And animal and wildlife is not predictable, right? You're going there and, they're standing in front of you, unlike other shoots, maybe, this thing.
Yeah.
As per them, what moves, not as per us. I mean, we don't schedule it. So that is the
Yeah.
entire thing. So I'm sure it's a tough one. So, Keya, in what ways do your filmmaking practice and your intuitive communication work, complement, or influence each other? So, both the
Oh,
things.
many ways. So something that I learned while making these documentary film is how do I, like having this ease of communication. So let's say कि अगर मैं किसी का इंटरव्यू कर रही हूँ तो इट्स नॉट लाइक कि हमने कैमरा ऑन किया और कैमरा ऑन करते ही वी जस्ट स्टार्टेड लाइक ऑन पॉइंट कि आप ये चीजें बताओ. व्हाट आई जनरली डू इज दैट आई आस्क नॉर्मल क्वेश्चंस कि आपका दिन कैसे चल रहा है, सुबह क्या किया आपने, कैसा रहा, सो दैट ग्रेजुअली हम उनको उस क्वेश्चन तक लेके जा सके. सो व्हेन वी आर डूइंग दिस प्रोसेस, it just helps the other person to open up and like be very calm and relaxed.
Right,
And same thing when I'm having my telepathic sessions, like it's majorly an online sessions. So जब मैं उनसे भी बात करती हूँ तो ऐसा नहीं होता कि डायरेक्टली कि अच्छा आपके डॉग क्या कह रहे हैं चलो बात करते हैं. I have normal conversations with them, and I am a person who is very curious and very social also. So I genuinely want to know what like people I'm talking to, what background do they come from. So while I'm having this conversation, it does the same thing for both of us. It
right,
just helps us like ease into that conversation, and the more that other person is open, utna easily आपका communication होता है.
right,
Second thing I would say कि what I've learned from communication in the filmmaking is do not leave for space for assumption. ये बहुत मेजर मैंने देखा है कि ये मेरे साथ भी ये चीजें हो चुकी है. And for example, I was speaking to this dog, and this dog was in the hospital, and the parent called, and I speak to the dog. The dog said कि हाँ मैं बिल्कुल ठीक हो जाऊंगी, आप चिंता मत करो, I'll be absolutely okay, healthy. And all, I said the same thing कि डॉग तो ठीक हो जाएगी, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है. 2 दिन बाद उसके पेरेंट का फोन आता है कि आपने तो झूठ बोला था, वो तो डॉग, सो दैट डॉग पास्ड अवे आफ्टर 2 days. एंड इट्स लाइक आप तो गलत चीजें बता रहे हो, ऐसा तो होता नहीं है. आई ऑल्सो गॉट वेरी स्कैर्ड कि यार ये मैंने गलत इन्फॉर्मेशन, या मुझे ऐसा लग रहा था कि मैंने पाप कर दिया. आई वाज लाइक सो अपसेट. So
right,
2 days or 3 days later, when I communicated with this dog soul, so she said, "Yeah, I told you I'm gonna be fine. I'm gonna be free from the pain. I am." I'm like, how? Yeah,
okay,
I
okay.
never said that I'm gonna be physically okay.
Physically present, yeah, okay,
I left my physical body and I'm fine. So
yeah,
ये जो स्पेस है कि जब हम क्वेश्चन कर रहे हैं तो आप वो जो गैप है, इवन while interviewing like people in my documentary films, I make sure that वो जो भी बात कर रहे हैं be as specific and as clear as possible,
right,
so that when the story comes out there are no space
mm,
for assumption, at least from my end as a director.
correct,
And yeah, like it's just like it intertwines all these
yeah,
skills.
how wonderful.
Mhm.
Sagar, for you, in your view, what role can young creators play in strengthening wildlife awareness and conservation? So important question. People talk about conservation and they go on talking about it, but I think films and they are a major because visual is something that it impacts everyone. So what would you want to elaborate on this?
So I feel young creators, whether it is content creators or creators overall, are very important because those are the people who are supposed to carry the torch ahead.
Right.
And if I talk about content creators, there's one guy that I would like to give a shout out to, who's called Sahir Doshi. Now, he's a
Okay.
fantastic Mumbai-based content creator who makes wildlife videos on the coast, like coastal wildlife of Mumbai. So
Okay.
people like him who are making content about things like
Mm.
that you can interact with, which is
Yeah.
why I do a lot of like videos. Oh, these birds you can see on our hills. So the people
Right.
who watch them and when they're having a walk, they're like, oh shit, that's the Jacob and Coco or whatever.
Correct. Correct.
So this, when I talk about content creation, I feel majority of the younger audiences are present on their phones rather than their TVs.
Absolutely.
So having that connect with wildlife happens only where they exist. And that is why I focus so much on creating content. And overall, creators, when we talk about younger creators, it is every like I don't want to be a weeb, which is an anime lover, but usually in Naruto they say the will of fire. They carry the will of fire. So every next generation has to carry the will of fire. They have to carry the torch ahead, and they have to do the things that differentiate them from the earlier generation. So they have to think from their perspective and be different. They will be criticized. They will be like, ah, ये अच्छा नहीं है, वो अच्छा नहीं है, ये अच्छा क्या, वो अच्छा क्या. They'll always be kind of talked about, but that is the point. For example, I talk a lot about wildlife, and people who are like my dad's age, or like 60s, they're like,
Yeah.
अरे वाह, कितना अच्छा करते हो तुम. But I'll include memes into wildlife which they don't understand. But ये वीडियो तो नहीं समझ में आया. I'm like, ये वीडियो नहीं था आपके लिए फिर. So
Huh.
that kind of difference has to exist. So I
Yeah.
feel newer creators, whether on social media or film or wherever they are incredibly important, because without them, the next generation is also in jeopardy.
That's a good point. So I feel that's what I said again, that visually what you both are doing, it creates impact, because we also keep having these wildlife sessions in schools in Pune, and once if you talk and talk and talk, they are like disinterested. They are, it's just not for them, in the sense they start looking here and there. But if you're showing maybe a tiger, a wild dog, or anything, and then explaining or showing a video and things, so they immediately can, they relate, and then they think about asking questions on that also, which we know that they are paying that much of attention. So I think awareness through conservation, awareness is a primary thing of conservation through films, is what, films are making for you, what you're doing, Sagar, for that matter. That's a good thing. So Keya, what core principles guide you across both storytelling and intuitive communication? So, what are the principles that you follow in both these things? So, do you feel that sometimes you go overboard in a lot of aspects? Yeah. So, how do you? What are those principles that you're generally keeping in mind when you're doing both the things?
It's always, मतलब मैं जब भी पिक्चर बनाती हूँ, like I have always end up giving more than 200%, even if it's not needed. And I'm
Yeah.
sure सागर के साथ भी यही होता होगा. So talking about the core principles, so see, one of the principle is not कि अरे नहीं नहीं मैं more than 200% नहीं दूंगी, because I think as filmmakers आपको वो, and especially being a documentary filmmaker, करना
Right.
ही पड़ता है आपको. आपके पास option ही नहीं है, because आप फिर वापस नहीं जा सकते.
Right.
So, and talking about the other principles that I follow is one, genuinely listening to people. हम सब एक ना परसेप्शन लेकर जाते हैं, जो मेरे साथ भी हो चुकी है कई बार, कि मैं स्टोरी लेके जा रही हूँ कि अरे ये तो यही स्टोरी है, बट सामने वाला जो मुझे बता रहा है उसकी कहानी कुछ और ही है. तो जब आप वो देखना चालू करते हो, सो एज अ फिल्म मेकर इट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर यू टू एक्चुअली लिसन टू व्हाट दे आर सेइंग एंड नॉट व्हाट यू वांट टू हियर. आपकी अपनी स्टोरी है, कहानी है, ऑफ कोर्स. दूसरा इज फॉलो योर, लाइक ट्रस्ट योर सेल्फ, आई विल से. देखो, मैं 12 साल से पिक्चरें बना रही हूँ, ठीक है. इतनी पिक्चरें बनाने के बाद भी हर बार मेरे साथ यही होता है कि पिक्चर ले तो ली, बनेगी कि नहीं बनेगी, कि क्या होगा, मुझसे तो नहीं हो पाएगा. लाइक इट ऑलवेज स्टार्ट्स विद दैट नर्वसनेस,
Right.
बट इंटरनली यू हैव दिस ट्रस्ट कि नहीं यार, मैं इतने साल से कर रही हूँ, टीम चीजें हो जाएंगी ना, इन दी एंड पिक्चर अच्छी बन जाती है, वेयर वी हैव नॉट सो गुड एक्सपीरियंस ऑल्सो.
Yeah.
So trusting yourself and also telepathic communication, the one thing that it teaches you, बाकी सारी चीजें भी छोड़ दें, is self validation. We as humans, हमको आदत होती है, जो मैं अभी भी सीख ही रही हूँ, outer validation की.
Right.
एंड टेलीपैथिक स्पेस में भी अगर आप ट्रस्ट नहीं करोगे कि भाई मुझे जो आंसर्स आ रहे हैं, दे आर द लाइक आंसर्स दैट आई एम सपोज टू रिसीव, एंड आई
Right.
ट्रस्ट माई सेल्फ, पीपल विल बी एबल टू कैच इट. मतलब लोगों ने मेरे फिल्म में भी वो कैच किया है, व्हेन आई एम लाइक नॉट ट्रस्टिंग माई सेल्फ, एंड एज like people that I'm talking in a telepathic space as well. Third thing I would say is just follow your gut feeling and intuition. And especially, I think when it comes to either working with animals or when like making a documentary, the documentary में जैसे बोलते हैं ना कि fiction में you are the director, but in documentary, and I think especially when it comes to wildlife, I think God is डायरेक्टर, आप कुछ नहीं कर
Correct.
सकते.
Correct. Correct. Correct.
So,
Correct.
वहां
It's
पर उस उसमें like I feel कि really follow your intuition and gut feeling when it comes
correct.
to working with nature, because the moment you do that, you will see the magic unfold.
Right.
So
Right.
these are the core principle that like I've been
Yeah.
following and learning more.
Correct. So, Sagar, are there any species or landscapes in India that you're especially excited to film in the near future? So, what is your, you want to do this, this is what excites me. So,
Very honestly, this is the most common yet the most challenging question that I get from
uh,
everyone, that whether they're wildlife people or non-wildlife people. They're like, "Oh, which is your favorite bird?" I'm like, "I don't know." So, I really, recently, after I saw my first tiger in 2011, I saw my first leopard last month. So after
oh,
14 years, I saw my first leopard in absolute movie fashion. So, with having said leopard, snow leopards are big on my list, being
okay.
the absolute fantastic specimen that they are, just like fluffy leopards. And that is one answer that I could come up with off the top of my head. But the reality is that I've seen so little of India that how can I comment? So
Yes.
any place, I think I'm going to Orissa early next year. So there's a lot of things on my bucket list. And I think even
Okay.
at if I live up to 8 years old, I'll be like, oh, ye dikhna reh gaya. So I feel like snow leopards are big on my list. But
Yeah.
overall, when we talk about landscapes and habitats, I think there's way too many for me to ever cover, and I would love to do all of them. So I think the mangroves and
Yeah.
like the lakes, estuaries of Orissa might be the next one.
Yeah.
But yeah, everything's on the bucket list for me.
So you can do the turtles thing also. There's the olive turtles, which
Yeah,
happen.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that happens in Orissa, apparently, and
Yeah,
also great. So much to do. I mean, it's like
exactly.
So that's it. So we come to the last question. Okay, if I have to ask that, I want to take up something, the same thing that you're doing. So finance wise, I mean, financially or money wise, how lucrative, Kea, would your both uh, professions, I shouldn't call them, but whatever you are into, both the things, how lucrative. This is for the people who are listening. You can just, because so many people want to do so many things, but ultimately they also give up thinking that isme to nahi hai. I mean, or the efforts that commensurate with the money or probably what you get out of it. How is it in your kind of fields?
I mean, in this time, I would like to hear Sagar first, then I will share my
Yeah,
experience.
Sagar, yes.
So the money, when we talk about India, wildlife film doesn't really, if you want to pay your bills and
Yeah,
live that
yeah,
life, you can do it. You can do that with wildlife film. But if you're thinking about having like a good life with a good amount of money, wildlife film is not really the place for you. So it is more of a passion fueled endeavor,
right,
but
right.
that is what I'm trying to change with my perspective on these things. That is why I do focus more on social media, because social media, that way you can access a lot of paid opportunities which are not usually found in mainstream film. And mainstream film, when you talk about wildlife, there's so much diplomacy, the
Yeah,
permits that you have to get, and then actually going out and filming. I know I was in Bristol like 1.5 years ago. I was seeing this Nat Geo screening, and they had spent, if you want to make a really good film, you've got to spend months, and they spent 7 months filming bonobos in Congo.
okay,
So
okay,
even if you're doing, let's say, tigers, or you're doing the lion-tailed macaques, whatever you're doing, there's a lot of, it's a money drain, it's a effort drain, it's a time drain. So you really have to be passionate about those things, and you can't really think of these things currently in the current economic Indian climate. These are not things that are going to pay you well. So I'm not going
right,
to lie to anyone. But that is why I do social media
right,
branding, and I'm trying to become a wildlife presenter, which is a job in front of the camera that doesn't exist. No one is like, oh, okay, then I'm a wildlife presenter. So
right,
creating your own value in this space is what will set you apart. If you just
right,
want to document wildlife and make films out of that and make money of that is going to be a difficult road. I would not say it's impossible. You can get good funding from a certain, few companies if they're willing to, but
Right.
it's a necessarily steep slope to climb.
Okay, good. Yeah, yeah.
मुझे लग रहा था मैं अकेली तो नहीं हूँ सफर करने वाली। So just adding to what Sagar said, see, like he's mentioning about wildlife. Even when we are talking, see, in the end, it is a documentary film, like with different genre. So documentary in general is a space where सिर्फ अगर आप इसी पे सर्वाइव कर रहे हैं तो ही इज एब्सोल्युटली राइट कि इट इज डिफिकल्ट टू मेक मनी एंड इफ लाइक यू हैव टू मेंटेन अ सर्टेन लाइफस्टाइल उसके साथ साथ लाइक व्हाट आई हैव बीन आल्सो डूइंग इज लाइक अगर मान लो मैं डॉक्यूमेंट्री फिल्म जैसे मैं पहले बना भी रही थी तो अदर देन मेकिंग दीज डॉक्यूमेंट्री फिल्म्स और शॉर्ट फिल्म्स आई एम आल्सो डूइंग दिस डिफरेंट कमर्शियल वर्क दैट लाइक आई कम अक्रॉस पीपल बिकॉज यू नीड टू हैव मनी टू यू नो
Absolutely, yeah.
फॉर योर सेल्फ लाइक फॉर योर फाइनेंशियल सेफ्टी एंड एवरीथिंग और मुझे पहले ये लगता था कि ये सिर्फ इंडिया में ही है एंड इफ यू रिमेम्बर जब कोविड हुआ था तो एक ऐप आई थिंक इट वाज कॉल्ड क्लब हाउस और समथिंग जहां पर एक ये सेपरेट रूम्स बनते थे एंड वेयर यू कुड हैव
Correct,
दीस
correct.
कॉन्वर्सेशंस
Yeah.
तो उसमें देयर वाज दिस रूम ऑफ डॉक्यूमेंट्री फिल्म मेकर्स और मैंने आई थिंक पीपल फ्रॉम डिफरेंट कंट्रीज सो आई आस्क्ड देम दैट what do you think like this is how we are struggling when it comes to money when it comes to funding because again documentary is a space जहाँ पे easily funds भी नहीं मिलते आपको so they said कि Keya, you know what the reality is everywhere like even in the western world or outside India it's this similar space so what like a lot of other people are also doing either they're professors in filmmaking institute so you have different space like of your interest of course but उसके साथ साथ आपका वो मनी रोलिंग वहां से चल रहा है बट एट द सेम टाइम यू हैव लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल अगर आपको अपनी डॉक्यूमेंट्रीज के लिए फंड्स चाहिए so you have this doc the only pitching platform in India is called doc edge doc edge which happens in Calcutta every year so आपके कोई भी अगर documentaries है and you want fund for that चाहे वो किसी भी stage में हो so you can go there as an observer or as a
Okay,
participant so
okay.
that is where you can get these funds so I'm just mentioning this because I'm sure
Yeah,
कि if this video reaches out to lot of
right.
budding
Of course.
filmmakers and they should know how to navigate
Correct, correct. Yeah. So
yeah
good. I
but
mean, yeah,
like just quickly adding like what Saga said that how he is creating his own area where he can do what he loves passionately and at the same time can convert that into a good financial stable place I think that's is wonderful and that can be like that space can be created.
wow. Yes, so we have one question coming down. So it's like, this is a wonderful journey. Question how we make wildlife commercially viable. So we spoke right now, I guess. Or what are hurdles in it? We spoke, and as then only one more youngsters will take it as a career than just a passion. So that's what he meant. So I think we covered it in our talk right now. So what are the hurdles and how financially viable it can become and things like that.
I have
So
a question for Sagar actually.
yes, yes, all you can ask definitely.
I wanted to ask Sagar ki, जैसे you've been, I think since your childhood, you've been, working in
Yeah,
wildlife.
correct.
I want to know from your perspective, जो मुझे लगता है कि बहुत सारे लोगों का सवाल भी है कि why do you think it is important to have wildlife on this planet earth in and especially when it comes to humans because मुझे लगता है कि humans को ऐसा लगता है कि नहीं ये जरूरी नहीं है या उसकी importance समझ में नहीं आती how critically it is connected with us.
I feel whenever this conversation I usually have a lot with people who are conservation activists, people who are in the conservation space, and this is the point that I always say to them quite blatantly, is that all conservation, all wildlife conservation, जो कुछ भी चल रहा है कि deforestation मत करो, ये मत मारो, वो मत करो, that is self-preservation. We are not some godly saints that have been sent from heaven that हम बचाने आए. We're saving ourselves. That is
Yeah,
how important wildlife and these habitats are. So
correct.
let's say if I ask anyone on earth कि tomorrow अगर भगवान स्वयं आ गए और बोले कि ये मैं पोलर बेयर सब निकाल रहा हूँ इधर से, but entirety of the earth will still stay, everything is fantastic, but polar bear चले जाएंगे, who will not take it? That is
Yeah,
simply the point. It is an act of self-preservation, but people don't understand it. People are like, हाँ क्या ही होगा, turtle ने straw निकल लिया, ठीक है. But it is all connected to humans more than it is to them, because they don't have voices, they don't understand this complexity that we have created in this world. So
yeah,
I made a reel about how important the hills are to Pune for like its own
correct.
water, its own lungs, and all of that. And all of these things are to preserve us. We are seeing AQIs of 200 in Pune, in Mumbai, 600 in Delhi. This is what we're talking about. All of these are self-preservation tactics. We're just, because we're calling them wildlife preservation, wildlife conservation, all of that, we give them these fancy names. That
Right.
makes people turn off from it. So I feel I can see, like I used to see so many more birds on the hills of Pune that I don't see now, whether it's in quantity or whether it's in diversity. So it is quite literally happening in front of our eyes, and the sooner we kind of wake up to the reality that it's self-preservation and not wildlife preservation, I think it'll be better for us.
So the best example I would like to say is sparrows here. I mean, everyone's talking
Exactly.
about
Yeah.
that. So they're absolutely gone. I mean, they're gone
Yeah.
from us. So we have not left them with anything for that matter. In the sense, in the concrete jungle, they used to have nests and stuff like that. I mean, nothing is there now. So slowly
Exactly.
we are trying and getting, away with every species, ultimately. So
Hmm.
it's really sad. But what he said was a very good point of, self-preservation. So that's what it is. So it's again human selfishness here. Because
Yeah.
self
And
I think
if
that's a
that
good.
ends up saving everyone.
yes. Correct, correct. So that's great. So both of you would want to tell your Insta ID or where to follow for the people so they, can, keep checking on your work later on also. So Keya, what is your, do you have a YouTube or a Insta ID? You can mention it
देखो
here.
मेरी वेबसाइट तो बन ही रही है आई एम स्टिल, क्योंकि अब वो होता है कि इतने कामों में इतने व्यस्त हो जाते हैं.
Yeah.
So my Insta handle is comparatively active, so it's Keya.Vaswani,
Okay.
KEYAVASWANI. तो उसमें like I
Okay.
have this black and white photograph, so you'll be able to
Okay.
find me.
Okay. And Sagar has just mentioned in the chat, so that's
Yeah.
his Sagar Paranjape.
It's
So
simple.
yeah, so I would like to say to people on Facebook that it is Keya.Vaswani. So please follow her and her work and Sagar Paranjape, of course. And yes, we come to the end of this thing, and I was so delighted to talk to you because I'm telling you, the energies are different. I'm not saying the old people are really old, but the energy that you're bringing and the thing, something related to wildlife, animals, and the younger people being in it. I mean, having that empathy itself is a big thing, and we need that because, as we say, the generations coming in will only be able to hold this up other than because whatever we've experienced or the older generations already it was in abundance and it's slowly depleting. So that's how it is. So thank you so much,
Right.
both of you, and to the listeners, those who've not joined right now, we will put it up on the YouTube and share the link so you can follow for this webinar and keep in touch. Thank you so much, Kara. Yes.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you so
you
much.
so much. It was
Yes.
lovely.
Yes. Bye bye.